Our Program Director, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Listening to Paul, I must say, Paul, gee, you could have kept going for an hour. I was really intrigued. So, apologies, ladies and gentlemen, for Eskom's Chief Executive who wasn't able to be here this morning. On your program, I don't think there's any Eskom speaker, but I think the intention was for him to slip in. Then I was asked in turn to come through. So, good morning to you all, and to friends and colleagues. It's been great actually to meet so many of you this morning, from former Eskomites to business partners at the moment. So good morning, friends, and hope you have a great conference. The presentation topic given to me was to talk about tapping into opportunities presented by the energy sector. So I thought, well, you know, a lot of the statistics and the project work you would already be aware of. So I thought to take a bit more of a step back and look at the situation around energy. I was specifically asked to talk about energy, so not only electricity, and then to come up with some ideas, and hopefully these will be useful to you through the conference. And then I understand that Woolsey Barnard will be coming through after me. So the government projects, and specifically the IPP projects, I won't be dwelling on, other than to talk about how Eskom would interface with these projects. So let's get going. I think there are, I understand, visitors from elsewhere in the African continent and internationally, so let me give a brief overview of Eskom. Eskom is a vertically integrated power utility in South Africa. We produce about 40% of the power on the African continent. We have been through various cycles of surplus power and deficits, and at the moment we are definitely in a shortage of electricity, and this will persist for at least 3 years into the future while the new power stations we're building come online. So certainly in terms of opportunities, opportunities abound, and I think as Paul explained what's happening in the rest of Africa, certainly in South Africa, there's never been a time when, certainly from Eskom's point of view, so much has been happening in terms of building new capacity and bringing a vibrant independent power producing sector online. The other opportunity is clearly the fact that we need to diversify very quickly away from a carbon-based electricity industry that we have at the moment. And you can see on the graph that almost 93% of our capacity is coal-fired, and I don't need to lecture anyone on the issue of carbon footprint, but we produce about half the CO2 as Eskom in South Africa, and half of Africa's CO2 comes from South Africa in turn. So once again, a massive focus on swinging away and diversifying away from a coal-based utility that we are at the moment. So let's talk about the existing opportunities then. And once again, not to steal thunder from the Department of Energy, but we have a progressive integrated resource plan which looks to 2030 to say how exactly are we going to diversify, and how are we going to move away from that 93% to a far lower percentage, and what technologies will be employed. And I'm sure that you've attended presentations where these have been covered, the various scenarios, but clearly renewables and nuclear technology will be big and will be the focus up to 2030. So a lot of different criterion and considerations, also balanced from affordability to, once again, reducing carbon emissions, water conservation, localization, and regional development. Very important in the integrated resource plan, and achieving an optimal balance of these has been a focus. When the plan plans out, what we'll see, sorry, I can't point to the screen, but that if you look on the left-hand diagram, where we are roughly in 2010, for all intents and purposes, you see this situation that we are, and you see that brown mass of 92% capacity. And you can see as you move to the right to 2030, how the proportion of capacity moves away from coal to other forms of energy, and in so doing, our carbon footprint of 912 grams of carbon per kilowatt hour will reduce to 600 grams of carbon per kilowatt hour produced by that time. So in itself, a massive change that will be brought about in the country, and which we are busy seeing at the moment. Our portion, Eskom's portion of the integrated resource plan, so we'll build some of that, and independent power producers will build the rest. Our portion is firmly on the go. We've returned 3 previously mothballed power stations to service, well, virtually entirely back to service, the Camden, Grootfontein, and Komati power stations. Just 2 units to go there, and then we're back to service at all of those power stations that were mothballed 20 years ago, as I spoke about those cycles, and that was done when we were in a cycle of surplus generation capacity. The Medupi and Kusile power stations will be the 3rd and 4th biggest coal-fired power stations in the world, and the first generator at Medupi, we're working very hard to get that online as soon as possible, hopefully this year still. Ngula is a pumped storage power station, built basically 2 dams, upper dam and lower dam. We let water out the upper dam through a turbine to produce power, and then during our off-peak times, during the times of surplus over weekends, we would pump the water back up the hill, so a large battery if you like. And then our first significant venture into renewable energy, the Sierra wind farm, will be a 100 megawatt wind farm, and that will be coming online in 3 to 4 years from now. So you can see how Eskom will basically remain a major constructor of power projects and developer of power projects. But is that the time? Thanks, Paul. Trouble is I can't get around these banners. So I might have to ask you to put it. Okay, so on the one hand, we're building projects. On the other hand, it's very important that as the operators of the power grid, that we make it possible for independent power producers to join the grid. Over the last year, we've signed off 700 quotations for access to the grid, for the connections. And that is not all to do with the independent power producer projects of the government, but certainly a large portion of that would be. But again, the vibrancy and opportunities abound. 700 companies have really spent a lot of time and money putting project proposals together to a point where they are prepared to spend money on getting quotations and connecting to the national grid. So a very vibrant sector. From Eskom's point of view, we've set up a grid access unit, a one-stop shop. So if you, as an IPP, would like to get connected to the grid, please speak to our Gabriel Khabo, who heads up the grid access unit, or to myself, and we'll make sure that you get a good service from that. Of course, the opportunities abound, both in terms of wind and solar radiation for South Africa, and there you can just see a heat map of South Africa versus Germany on the right. And if Germany is doing so well on PV systems, you can just imagine what the opportunities are in South Africa. In the Northern Cape, I was speaking to a colleague earlier, we're seeing massive economic development happening in the Northern Cape as a result of the government's IPP program. So it really has stimulated the economy. You can't get accommodation there. Our Eskom office is really seeing a number of firms move in there. So the economic development and opportunities created down the line are absolutely substantial. On our new build program, of course, these have been, the new power stations we're building have been the biggest infrastructure projects the country has ever seen, not just in the power sector, but Gautrain, the development of Sandton, etc., are far smaller. So all the opportunities for resources, the cement, the coal that will be burnt there, the steel that's gone into it, the amount of water, even though they're dry cooled, still a substantial amount of water, the road transportation, absolutely phenomenal. And so the spin-offs and opportunities created abound. So I'm often asked to talk to, for example, the steel conference, and there you can, the steel industry. Went to a steel conference a couple of weeks ago, and I think the amount of steel going to power stations is about 5 times bigger than going into the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa. It's not only about producing power stations, of course the transmission systems are equally important, and a number of projects on the go at the moment, both in terms of the lines as well as the substations to be constructed, and a number of strengthening systems as well as grid ties for not only IPPs but of course our own projects on the go. So all over the country a lot of transmission and other network projects happening. So all in all, if you bring together the return to service, you bring together Eskom's new construction, you bring together the IPPs which we connect into the grid, and the transmission systems which are being strengthened and extended, this is really the time of the project development. And as Paul was saying, in Southern Africa and Africa, certainly in South Africa, this is it. But there's a couple of other considerations which I thought I'd share with you. In terms of emerging trends, energy efficiency has been a trend which we've embarked on, which we've jumped on board with in South Africa, and we've pursued a demand-side management program for a couple of years now. But that is set to get stronger and stronger by all accounts if you look at global trends. In South Africa, 9 of the 13 industrial sectors are substantially more energy intensive than their peers elsewhere in OECD. So dramatic opportunities to improve the energy efficiency of the industries in South Africa. Of course, these industries were in the main brought about during times of cheap, abundant electricity. Now that that's changed, an important focus on seeing where we can introduce new technologies to industry, work together with the industry in partnerships to look at better efficiencies. At household level as well, there are a number of opportunities to increase the energy efficiency of homes. Last year, from Eskom's point of view, in our energy efficiency program, we visited 700,000 homes, changed out downlighters, put in timers on geysers, swimming pool pumps, energy efficient shower heads, and we'll keep going. This program has been very important for us. Since we started in 2004, our demand-side management program, the audited savings are 3,400 megawatts. So that's about equivalent to a 6-pack power station in terms of capacity. We'll keep going. This financial year, we are busy finalizing the results from that, and 550 megawatts of capacity has been saved through the DSM project. The auditors will just tweak that number slightly up or slightly down. But 550 megawatts means that the lights stay on in South Africa. That's how tight the system is at the moment. NERSA, in terms of their determination, have reduced the funding that we have available for the program, but we'll have to address that. But certainly this is a program which, for the benefit of South Africa, we'll continue with. It's not only about the megawatt savings that's, of course, helped to keep our system in balance, but the job creations, the skill development, the black economic empowerment, the local manufacturing opportunities, the opportunities to leverage contracts and look at new ways of developing programs, all of which have been made possible through our demand-side management program, needs to be sustained. A couple of thoughts. What we've also done in the last year is extended our demand-side management program into renewable energy, and we've got about 20 projects which have been developed where our customers have installed renewable energy. So if you can imagine a wine farm with rows of vineyards, and between those rows are now PV systems that actually sort of old world, new world look. It's absolutely amazing. Other examples are biodigesters in abattoirs. That the waste products from abattoir is an environmental hazard, but can be productively used to produce electricity. If you have a biodigester producing methane, use that through a generator. You're not only producing electricity, you're taking care of the biohazard, and you are producing waste heat, which again is useful in the abattoir. So these are the types of projects which we are now also taking onto our programs. It's not just about energy efficient lights and heat pumps and motors and fans. A lot of new technologies coming about. PaveGen, I'm not sure whether you've encountered PaveGen. Did anybody participate in the world record 3 weeks ago in South Africa for this? PaveGen, I'll just give an example of a technology where you basically pave an area with plates, which, when you step on them, produce a small amount of power. So you can actually gather that power and store it and use it. So all of these technologies coming about. 3 weeks ago, as part of our energy savings drive, we invited the public to participate in a project where we got bouncing balls and we put a whole area with these paving stones, and we during the Earth hour, or just before the Earth hour, about 4,000, we've got 4,000 adults, believe it or not, to bounce on rubber balls, produce power. That's a world record. It beats Ireland's record, I think, of 2000, so the Guinness Book of Records set up. And that power was stored and used to power a laser show, which was shown during Earth hour. So, funny technologies coming about. In terms of lighting, certainly immense opportunities for entrepreneurs and technologists in this environment. LED, I'm particularly keen on LED lighting. It's now possible with modern LEDs to just change colors, change the intensity, etc. remotely. So you can actually sit in your lounge and you can change the ambiance to romantic if that's what you want. Dim the lighting, change the colors. It's all made possible now. You can even have a remote-controlled fireplace these days. So technology is really driving things. On the cars, it's possible now to buy an electric vehicle and connect that electric vehicle to your home. So if you're worried about power shortages, here's your answer. You just get an electric vehicle which will power your home. How about peel and stick solar cells? Also made possible. So all of these technologies coming about. It's a very, very vibrant sector. And then I like this one as well. Materials which actually produce power from moisture. So what you can do now is buy a t-shirt covered with these things, and you can power your heart rate monitor or your, I don't want to say Walkman, I'm giving my age away, but whatever the modern equivalent, your iPod with your own perspiration. So amazing technologies, and the energy possibilities just astounding. In the longer term, have a look at this, that by 2030, as compared to where we are, so we're a population at the moment of about 7 billion people on Earth. By 2030, compared to where we are at the moment, 50% more food will be needed, 30% more water, and 40% more energy. Okay, so there's the opportunity. We're in a growing industry. Now, the difficulty is that we're growing, but we're also running into constraints all the time, and I think these are often called nexuses, whatever the plural of nexus is. So in terms of food, water, and electricity, you can imagine a triangle. So, you want a power station, but it uses water, but you're water constrained. You want biofuels, but now you've got to take away arable land. So these are playing off. You can imagine a triangle, but it's not a triangle anymore. If you take all the considerations, and the World Economic Forum has looked at this, it looks more like that. In terms of how all of these issues play out against each other, weapons of mass destruction, climate change, air pollution, all of these considerations and forces are pushing against each other. So our challenge is not just to go and develop the project, but increasingly we need to be mindful of the other factors that are impacting on our project, and where our project will impact on other it can be environmental, social, technological issues that we need to bear in mind with. So not easy. Just to illustrate the point, just consider food and water for a second. If you take into account the amount of irrigation needed and all the rest of it, that one glass of wine needs 1,000 cups of water to produce. Okay. So 1 cup of coffee, it's 1,200 cups of water. And one hamburger is about 10,000 cups of water. So if you really want to become energy efficient, just eat less hamburgers. But I think that's what it comes to. So changing lights and becoming, switching off your geyser and all the rest of it are great, but it's not going to get us to where we need to be. The population of the world, as I said, 7 billion. In 50 years' time, the urban population of the world, if current growth rates continue, just the urban population will be 8 billion. So that means that more than the whole population of the world will be living in cities in 50 years' time. If we accept that renewable energy is the way to go as for a sustainable future, it's becoming increasingly apparent that there isn't enough opportunity to produce enough renewable energy to power that way forward. even with energy efficiency, that's the scary thing. You can change out your lights, you can put a solar water heater on your roof. It still won't be enough to meet the energy demands of our emerging future. So it prompts a whole new think about how we build cities. And the opportunities actually for our children is to make sure that the cities we're building and the urbanization and planning that we do takes energy and, of course, other things, but for our purposes today, energy into account. So it's up to us to talk to town planners, architects, etc., to really push these issues forward from an energy industry. Of course, zero energy households and buildings will be a big part of that. And as I've said, we already got rooftop PV systems as part of our standard offer program on our demand-side management program within Eskom. And those are going very well. But even that won't be enough. Solar water heating. Strange that there's a big opportunity within solar water heating. The government has put almost 5 billion rand aside for a rollout of solar water heaters. We see different pockets. Yesterday in Soweto, we had a clarification session for a tender which we've issued, and 800 people attended, entrepreneurs attended that clarification session in the hopes of getting into the industry. So that's great and points to the vibrancy and opportunities there. What is surprising is that municipalities were asked to indicate, DOE asked all the municipalities around the country to indicate their appetite for taking up solar water heating. And of the 250, it was around 25 who actually indicated that they would want to go that way. So a seemingly contradictory industry that has great opportunity for job creation and for service delivery, but if only 10% of the municipalities are actually wanting this, then we've got a problem. And virtually all of those 25 were in Gauteng. That's the other issue. So what about the rest of the country? In terms of designing the city of the future, it's become a big issue and a big focus, of course, internationally. And the winner of the History Channel competition a year ago was a company that redesigned San Francisco, that as you can see there. You're welcome to a copy of my presentation and you can go into exactly how they did it. But using modern technology and technology available to produce power through algae, they would use algae ponds to produce hydrogen, to power vehicles that would be hovercrafts running under the city, etc. They'd be using the Bay Bridge, put up collectors to absorb the fog as it goes through and distill that to produce, condense that to produce water. So a lot of innovations going on, a lot of focus going into how to design cities of the future. And certainly from South Africa's point of view, we've really got to get on board with this trend very quickly. So I'll end with, sorry, 5 minutes. Okay, no, I'm just about to end. Thanks, Paul. I'll end with this saying of Aristotle, which goes that a city exists for the sake of a good life, not for the sake of life only. So it really comes down to, from the energy sector, let's build our projects, let's do our demand-side management. Those are great, and we'll hear about all of those during the course of the conference. But once again, I think what we've got to do is be mindful of the fact that the biggest legacy we can leave for our children, in a sense, is a lifestyle which is environmentally responsible and energy responsible. And I'm not a greenie by any means, but I think this has become very apparent through the work that I've been doing on demand-side management.